let's welcome David Vallejo. Let's continue with our next presentation. David Vallejo is the project manager at the British Council. So, welcome, David. The stage is all yours.
I'm really happy to be here with you. So I'm just gonna share my screen really quick.
Mhm.
Here we go. So here it is. Okay. So I think you all can see my screen now, right?
Yes, we can. Okay.
Great. Okay. So once again, hello, good morning for those of you who are in Latin America. I'm really excited to be here with you, basically sharing an idea and an experience that we had back in 2019, right, before COVID. As you guys, as you have mentioned before, my name is David Vallejo. I'm a project manager at the British Council in Colombia. I work for the English for Education Systems unit. We basically work with local and national authorities, essentially the Ministry of Education and local education authorities. We work on a series of projects in which we support them with consultancy and with the implementation of programs in order to improve the conditions under which English is learned and taught. Basically, that's essentially what we do. So the name of my presentation is called Hackatons: Assessing Agency and Collaborative Innovation. And as I said, this is part of an experience that we had back in 2019. This is not a product of a study itself. Um, but it's more like a short story sort of thing that I want to share with you based on that experience, as I said, we had. So first of all, I need to talk a little bit about the context in under which we had this experience. This is the context of this is the bilingualism program that we have in the city of Bucaramanga, right here in Colombia. This is a project that we work in which we work together with the local education authority of Bucaramanga and the Chamber of Commerce of Bucaramanga. And among the different strategies we have, because we work with the public institutions from the city, but we also, I mean, at a institutional level, I mean, but we also work directly with teachers from the schools and with students from those schools. And this experience that I want to share with you happened in the context of one of the strategies that we had with students directly, the students from 10th and 11th grade in the schools of the city. We deliver there an ESP course in which we basically aim at training students to do very essential tasks or to gain certain skills that they might need when they graduate. By the end of this ESP course that they take, they are able to write CVs and present interviews and deliver short presentations. That's essentially what we train them to do by the end of this program, if I want to summarize. And by the end of that program, we had this activity, which was an immersion camp. That was some sort of a closing activity for those students. And that's what we needed to do. So, as I said, we delivered this ESP course with students, with around 1,200 students in the city. And by the end of that course, those of the students with the highest grades would be invited to an immersion camp, which would be a closing activity for this strategy. So that's in general terms how it sounds. But before actually telling you the story, we need to think a little bit about the relevance and why we address this term specifically, this term of agency and autonomy and stuff like that. We need to talk a little bit more about um, the concept or the idea upon which we built the whole strategy or this hackathon, which is something we're gonna discuss later. So as we deliver our strategies and as we teach students, you know, from public schools, we know that there are certain problems that we may have. um, eh, I mean, like that can affect the way instruction is delivered in general terms. So we started talking about something which Professor Acaso describes as the invisible pedagogies, and that has to do with the way in which you, as a teacher, uh, transmit a series of ideas or perceptions without knowing that you're telling or saying that. And what I mean is that Maria Caso says that one of the biggest lies in education is assuming that what you say is what the students learn. So at the end of the day, we somehow, as teachers, need to translate what we know into a way which is appropriate for students to understand, to comprehend, and eventually execute, if that's the case. So that was the first point. Like, let's think about how we are communicating with our students and how can we somehow communicate our expectations a little bit more clearly. So that was a very important concept. And apart from that, we also discuss a little bit about the model of education in general terms and how we quite often deliver courses. So we've got a teacher in front of a classroom delivering content, giving instructions, assigning tasks, and that's what Regulate call an education for the industrial era, in which we see the students just listening, somehow consuming content, and then delivering exercises or tasks. So that was the starting point of the discussion, like understanding that, and that would help us in the technical team in this project. Let's just say start having a discussion and working on this. Then we try to do some sort of a diagnosis, and I really like Calm's presentation, as he says that when we expect to design or deliver an ESP course, one of the very first things we need to do is to run a diagnosis, test or phase in the project, so you know exactly what sorts of needs we have. And as I said, this was not part of a study, so all of these ideas were based on the assumptions that we had from our experience with this project in previous years. So we said that somehow we could see or feel that there were some functional fixations regarding the use of technology, and by what we call, or by what Valverde et al. Call as functional fixations, is that I mean, those perceptions on the fact that technology can be used in certain way, or that, for example, if you use a computer in the context of a class, you use it basically for downloading information and perhaps make presentations and the things that we normally do in a class. But perhaps we are not thinking about other ways in which we can use that same technology. We also discuss about the importance of the discourse and the support for autonomy that teachers perhaps were delivering. So, what kind of discourse do our teachers have, and what sort of support for autonomy they offer? And of course, the classroom management. How do they manage the relationships between the students and the interactions among the students, and of course, with the teacher? And regarding the students, we somehow couldn't identify the same, and it's that in the way that they use they would use technology in their classes, perhaps a lack of motivation or engagement, and the problem they would have regarding instructions, regarding their own learning pace. If we go back to Regulo's idea of educational models from this perspective of an industrial era, we have this teacher delivering information, the students consuming that information or content, and perhaps doing activities, for instance. So that sort of communication would perhaps make it a little bit harder for students to understand and follow instructions. So we said that we might have some sort of a hypothesis, and remember, this is not a study itself. This is part of one strategy that we implemented in the context of an agreement with two parties in a social implementation project. So that means that the time we had, it was very short. And regarding in terms of, for example, the way we uh, uh, sign those agreements with local partners in a country like Colombia, we know that projects cannot exceed 1 year. So normally our projects last from 7 to 9 months in the best of the cases. So we know that every single thing we want to do, we have very short time, but we still wanted to formulate a hypothesis. So we said, like, perhaps offering the students different options to conduct their own learning process could result in more motivated and committed individuals, we could say. Like, let's try to do that, to actually see that we are offering different options and that students can make very important decisions throughout their process. There are some other concepts which are essential in regarding the framework that we had for designing this strategy. I'm sharing this sources with you because I'm 100% sure that you will find them very useful. These three concepts were somehow essential for our design, and the first one has to do with the volition experience, which is this perception of that we humans have, that we decide upon the activities we do. So I am deciding upon my own learning process. The functional fixations that as I said before, that has to do with these perceptions that we have on the use on any sort of tool, and that's not just technology, but that has to do with any sort of tool that we use for any sort of purpose. When we think that that tool can be used only in a certain way, that's what they call a functional fixation. And then last but not least, the essential element of involvement or engagement, and that has to do with autonomy or agency, not just as a behavior that we can observe, but also as a basic psychological need of humans. Apart from that, as we were designing a course and as we were designing this hackathon, we also needed to have to discuss upon the instructional design and how we are designing the course, how we are designing this hackathon event. So we basically said that we needed to make a difference between those designs, those that might call as designs for engagement versus control design. So when we talk about a control design in the context of instructional design, we're talking about designs that somehow prescribe what needs to be observed and what needs to happen throughout instruction. But when we talk about designs for engagement, as Paulo states, we say that they are based on the premise that there are diverse epistemological worlds, constructivist theories, chaos, and systems. So that means that you propose a challenge, you propose a task, perhaps, but students could take different roads to get there. And apart from that, as I said, this psychological, let's say, dimension of the whole project that has to do with the self-determination theory, which is this theory that establishes, as I said just a couple of minutes before, that autonomy is a basic organical psychological need that we all humans have. So that this all of this is essentially, as I said, the initial discussion, the kind of discussion that we have with our team. As I said, this was not a study, but it was a team of people saying, like, look, we need to design a course, an ESP course, and we need to design by the end this immersion camp. We got a very short time. What can we do? So we had all this endless discussions in which we cover essentially these topics that I just described. Regarding the context then in which we like develop this strategy, as I said, that was part of a program that we developed with in the city of Bucaramanga with the local education authority in that city and the Chamber of Commerce. And this is the name of the event, which is what I want to focus on. So I will not focus on the course itself, but I will focus on this event that we use as a way to assess the whole process. And it was also some sort of a prototype, which was the very first time we did an event like this, and it was called Way to the Future, as you can see here. I know that it might sound like a completely different thing, but remember that we were working with high school students, so we wanted to play a little bit with the words there. But okay, so if I want to focus on the last stage of the whole course, which was the hackathon, we need to say, well, we need to talk about what a hackathon is. So what kind of event do we have by the end of this strategy? So we may say that a hackathon is a technique that was initially aimed at programmers and other actors in the field of web development. They meet to develop software applications collaboratively, uninterruptedly in the same physical space in a short period of time. So hackathons are super, super common in the field of technology and software development. This is a kind of of format they use a lot in this kinds of contexts in universities, especially. But it's also a format that is becoming more and more popular in other fields, basically because of its essence. And this is what I'm going to describe. So we could say that there are two let's say areas which are key for the development, design, implementation of a hackathon, and that has to do with innovation and collaboration. This is a format which is especially designed to get there. So if you want to, and as I said at the beginning of this presentation, I'm trying to put everything together. What I said is that I wanted just to tell you this story a little bit and perhaps share an idea that perhaps you could think of implementing in your own contexts. When we want to implement a hackathon, we need to know that there are three elements which are the foundation of the whole strategy, and that's what you need to do a hackathon. First of all, you need to have a problem. You need to identify a problem which is real, and a problem that affects those people who are going to be working on the solutions, in this case, the students. So we needed to think about a problem that was real in the context of the students who participated in the course and now in this closing event in the hackathon. Then you need to create a challenge out of that problem. So that challenge needs to feel personal. Let's say students need to feel that they are going to face something that affects them directly, and then you need to give them a mission. So out of that challenge, they need to do something. So what was the problem that we posed? We said, look, guys, and this is exactly what we did to what we said to our students. The young people of the city of Bucaramanga are not sure about what to study when they graduate from school. They do not have a clear knowledge of the demands of the region's labor market and consider economic factors as a very large obstacle. So that was the very first thing, just to tell them, look, this is the challenge. So I would like you to imagine that you guys are there in this hackathon, in this big event. So the very first thing was to tell them, look, this is the problem that we are facing. And this is a problem which is real, basically not just for children in Bucaramanga, but for, I mean, for children, no, that's not what I mean, but for high school students in Bucaramanga, but essentially for young people all around the world. And there are reports that talk about that. One very good example is the McKinsey report, which is called, it dates back to 2018, if I'm not wrong. It's called Education to Employment, designing a system that works. You can just Google it like that. And they show how this is a problem which is affecting young people all around the world. But then they would have a challenge. We need to offer relevant information that young people can use to guide their life project. So that's the challenge that we sort of posed. And then their mission was to design an innovative vocational guidance program for young people in Bucaramanga. So they had to design a program that could serve as a vocational guidance for other young people in the city, and that would inform on the possible decisions they could make regarding this. So the event, the hackathon, this is basically the people who participated in this event. So we had 80 students who participated before in the ESP course. Remember that this ESP course focused on developing very specific skills and the students as writing CVs, knowing how to present an interview, knowing how to deliver short presentations in English. So they've been working for around 3 months on that. And now they are here in this event. 80 students out of the whole audience that we had back in the course. And these 80 students were divided in 8 different teams. Also, there were 8 different tutors, one assigned to each one of the teams, and those tutors were the teachers they had in the course. So the English teachers they have back in the ESP course would be the tutors that would help them throughout the process. We also have a team of 5 mentors who were school teachers and also BC staff who had British Council staff who had also, I mean, essentially all of them or all of us were professionals in languages or held master's degrees in languages or education or educational technology, and we would be the mentors to support them throughout the process as well. And we would also invite three experts that would deliver presentations on a series of key topics. So this is the people who were part of the whole event when designing the event. And this is something that I also wanted to share with you. This is what we call un canvas de diseño or design canvas. These were the different aspects that we consider for designing the the strategy. I'm sorry, this format is in Spanish, but I'm sharing the actual format we used. But if you want to have access to this kind of materials, as the reference is, you can see the reference here in the bottom of my screen. This was based on a series of resources that the Tecnológico de Monterrey has in its website, which is called Innovación Educativa. If you Google that, like Innovación Educativa Tec de Monterrey, you will find immediately the website, and you will find different design canvas for strategies and this and events like this. So this is the aspects that we take into account, that we took into account for designing the whole event. So the different competences, as I said, the problem, challenge, and mission they had, the disciplines that were relevant to give them input about, also the knowledge that they needed to acquire through the event, the time that we would devote, the mentors, the way we would evaluate it, which I'm afraid this is not something I can go very in detail, but we also had a series of rubrics and stuff like that, and the possible risks that we could face when delivering the exercise. So they would have to present to create a product. So we would pose this challenge and everything, and then by the end, their final product would be an oral presentation of the proposal in front of the other teams and the evaluation panel. So the closing activity would be this final product. There were four different criteria for the evaluation, and there were creativity and innovation, completion of the concept, the scope of a concept, and technological impact. And by the end, of course, there would be some prizes for the best proposals. All of this, they had to do all of this in 18 hours. So we would start. I remember that was a Friday, like 7 a.m. in the morning, in this camp that we rented. So they would start working Friday 7 in the morning, and they would finish on Saturday around 3 4 p.m. more or less. So they would work almost nonstop. They work the very first day from 7 a.m. to almost 12 midnight, and then they would start the next day around 8 a.m. again. So they would work like nonstop in the teams to deliver this concept. This is also another idea that I would like to share with you, because like somehow I've tried to describe what was the context, the initial implications and ideas we had, more or less how we designed the concept of the event. But regarding the activities that they needed to do and every single step they would go over, we also use the design thinking methodology, which is something that I remember in 2018. I said this is going to become quite something. And now I see that lots of projects are also considering the use of design thinking. And we did it also in 2019. So students would use, I mean, their tutors would, they had a previous training on the use of design thinking. So they would lead students, and they would support them using this methodology for designing their products and designing their ideas. To do so, we created these posters. So I will share in a moment a 2 minutes video with you in which you will see this in action. But we created these posters that they would use for putting their ideas together. So they had to describe the problem, to include some thoughts and limitations, and to identify what they know and what they wanted to know. And by the end, they would use this format also, basically to put together the concept of their project. So those were the materials that we use. So if that's okay with you, I would like to share with you this 2 minutes video. It's, I think, actually less, in which you will see a little bit of a summary of everything I've said so far, and perhaps with the use of image, you will see a little bit more, like, better how this works. So I don't know if that's okay with you. I think we have the time.
I guess we could use the minutes that we had for questions to watch
Mhm.
this video, since I don't see any other questions from the audience. So go ahead
Okay,
and play the
great.
video, and then we can wrap it up.
Sure.
Um, okay.
Great. So would you please let me know if you can listen the audio?
No.
So I don't know if I can, because it doesn't allow me to specify that I want to share the both audio and
Let me see. Can you share the presentation again so I
sure.
can?
Here we are. So let me say,
You know what? There's no there's no icon for microphone in your presentation, so probably that's why. But maybe you can just play it and tell us about it, or do you
yeah, I
prefer
think,
to answer some questions?
well, I think we can do it because it has got subtitles. So yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so that was the video that I wanted to share with you. So just to conclude, well, I've got so many different questions to myself since we had this project, as I said, back in 2019 in a pre-COVID era.
Uh-huh.
So doing such an activity these days would be a complete new challenge. We actually just signed the same agreement with these partners, and we are going to have this strategy once again this year. And we are already thinking about the way in which we could have a similar event. But in general terms, what I would highlight out of this whole experience is the fact that we use all these formats and just to send somehow that message to the students involved, in which they could feel the essence what of the purpose of an ESP course, in which we are studying English for specific purposes. I mean, that's the actual point, and that's what we wanted them to actually understand. And by the end of this course, they could see that these skills that they have developed would help them not just to talk in English and have a better, better grades in school, but actually design solutions like the ones they were working on. And believe me, the outcome and the outputs that we had there, all the projects and ideas they came up with were really, really interesting. So, well, that was essentially the experience that I wanted to share with you. I'm also sharing here my email in case any of you want to continue with this conversation, and we may exchange ideas, and I don't know, like, tell you a little bit more about the experience we had back in 2019. So that was it.
Thank you, David. That was a very interesting experience. Claudia would like you to share the link for the video if it is possible.
Sure.
Okay, so maybe she can write to you an email so you can send it to her.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. And I'm actually looking for it for the video right now, and I can share the link right here on the chat box, I think.
Okay, great.
So you can
Thank
also, yeah.
you. Okay, everybody, it's time to finish this session. Please come back in 5 minutes to start our next presentation, okay? So bye.
Thank you.